Welcome back to the Building Bigger Lives podcast. We are excited today to bring you a new coaching topic. In the past, we've talked about the four roles of a leader: trainer, manager, advisor, and coach. And we're going to dig into one that came up during a Housing Wire series or Housing Wire session. And in that session, they were talking about mentorship versus sponsorship. So we're going to dig into that a little bit because it's something I've been thinking about since the event. So with that, welcome in, Michael.
Nice to see you today, Catherine. Yeah, this will be fun because, we had lots of takeaways from the Housing Wire gathering, and I love that this was one that hit high on your list. I love that it sparked a lot of thought that you've shared with me privately, and I thought this is a great topic. So let's share it with our audience. And some of these words are familiar. So our audience may be thinking, sponsorship. Oh yeah, I remember. Weren't the Bad News Bears sponsored by Chico's Bail Bonds? Um, Sorry, you had to be from the 70s to get that reference. That is a type of sponsorship. Building Champions is a sponsor of the Building Bigger Lives podcast. And so, there's different kinds of sponsorship, but the way I think you'll unpack this might show us a different angle and a really important one for those of us out there who are working within those four roles of a leader. So tell me, Catherine, where were you in this session? I believe this was during the Ladies in Leadership breakouts.
Yep, absolutely. And was just hearing about different ways that women can help other women expand into leadership. And one of those was, hey, we always talk about mentorship, but let's bring it to a different level, which is sponsorship and how that can be more impactful to the person that's on the other side of that.
Okay, well then let's just do the obvious. Let's break those down quickly for our audience and let's
Mhm.
talk mentorship first because most of us know what that means. We in fact interview a lot of our guests, especially the guests that we've had on our leadership series that we've talked to. We talk about the roles of the mentor in their leadership journey and who had been a person in their life who might have played that role. What do we mean by mentor so that we can contrast it with sponsor?
So, the way I think of mentor is someone that provides guidance that might also bip into that advisor role a little bit of, guidance, advice. Hey, have you tried this? Hey, have you approached it this way? Hey, have you called these people? Have you done these things? That's how I see mentorship. What about you?
Yeah, so I like that you went into the model where we, maybe loosely define an advisor as one of those four roles of a leader, but you're driving into that and saying, hey, there's a technical version of that, and that is mentoring. Mentoring's interesting because if you look at it closely, it of course is a two-way street. You have to have a mentor and a mentee often in business, at least in the context that most of our audience is listening to. So this isn't necessarily like youth mentoring or something that might look a little different. Let's put this in the framework of professionals. It's usually going to be someone seeking out someone else because they've either had some experience, had some success, had some version of a a a role that they get to play that maybe that mentee aspires to. And so they seek out the mentor to show me the way, show me how. And so that's why you're correct. It looks a little bit like advice because often they're coming with a list of questions or aspirations and they're seeking that person's counsel in order to get some advice on what to do here, what to do there. And it might formalize into a mentorship where let's do this regularly. Let's have some follow up. Maybe now the mentor feels free to give that person some direction with some accountability attached to it. Now, I'd like to see you bring this back. Let's look at the
Mhm.
progress you've made. Okay, so that's mentorship. So is a mentor also a sponsor, or is that a little bit different in the way that you heard it?
Well, the way that I heard sponsorship is they advocate for you, especially in decision-making rooms. So
Mm.
champion your case. It's an active role. So, for example, some of the things that I thought of is saying, hey, has anyone thought about this person for this project? Or, hey, have you seen the work that Mega's doing in this area? So I think it's that advocating for somebody is different than that one on one. It's when they're not there and what you're doing to help them come up.
Interesting. So when I think about our four rules of a leader model, that kind of flips into the manager role a little bit because often a manager sees in someone the potential to be able to handle a role or a responsibility or a project, and they get to do exactly what you just described. They get to kind of call them up. Hey, we're gonna see
Mhm.
if you can handle this and do this. But it started, to your point, with maybe them advocating in a room they weren't in order to
Mhm.
sell it to the leadership team or sell it to the customer or whoever was the on the other end of this opportunity, and they advocate. Okay, I like that a lot. So that version of sponsorship, you called it very proactive. I like the choice of that word. Tell me more about ways in which a sponsor being proactive might, what are some of the things you guys discussed in this breakout so that our audience can connect more with that?
Yeah, it was a pretty brief topic, but I've been listening and thinking about it a lot. So it's been ruminating. So,
Mm,
some other things I thought about is, let's say somebody, an example might be my husband was in a city meeting. They're talking about a new down payment assistance program. And he said, "Hey, do you know who knows a ton about down payment assistance? Is my wife. Call her." That would be advocating. At least that's how I would think about that as an
mm.
advocate. I wasn't in the room. Then they called to say, "Hey, this is a person to get involved in this conversation." It could even be a form of a really strong referral. That's a easy way for at least I think mortgage people to think about it is somebody's advocating for you, saying, "You know who you should use." And it's different than just sending a list, right? An advocate might say, "Hey, this agent is going to be perfect for you because they know this product so well." Or, "Hey, this lender is good for you because they understand how to get first-time home buyers into homes in our market." That changes.
That's so crystal clear. Catherine, I like that a lot because you're right. We live in a world in the housing industry, whether you're on the real estate side or the lending side, where referrals are critical. They're like fuel. Without them,
Mhm.
at least those of us that are not working in a call center. So, those of us that are out hunting for business every day, those of us who are responsible for lead generation and ultimately production, we need those referrals. That's a key. So you're elevating the referral in that case to a level of advocacy. It's sponsorship. I like that a lot. That might be a great topic for those that work together. So let's just hypothetically say a loan originator who's out there who might be working with a financial advisor. He might be seeking or she might be seeking sponsorship from that other professional because that's way more than, oh yeah, I've got a mortgage guy or I know a gal. Those aren't really strong referrals. In fact, if any of us have received those, you're really torn with this tension of, I'm grateful that you did something, like thanks, but you're not setting me up very well to stand out amongst a sea of other people who do the same thing. And our goal is to stand out because there's something unique about you. There's something about working with you that is different than everybody else that I'm going to work with. So why not set that expectation up front, create some advocacy for that? I like that a lot. So let's go further down that road. Have you experienced that with any of your partners, or do you get to do that as the referring source with any of the folks that you work with? And how does that look in real life?
Yeah, so I think that it's all about the conversation, right? So it's listening to what they need, and whether that be if you're in a boardroom and someone's saying, "Hey, we need a person to do this specific project and this is what we need." And then circling back with, "Hey, I think I know someone perfect. She has the skills of being able to do this and this and this," and whether that be a lender, a realtor, someone you're mentoring, "Hey, they have these specific skills, and this is why I'm recommending this person." So rather than you shoot the information off, it's, "Hey, tell me what you really are looking for first," because that's a different level of sponsorship advocacy for that person.
That's really good. I'm glad we're talking through this. The topic here is shifting a little toward another
Mhm.
topic, and I like it because that's when you know that what you've been thinking about for 2 weeks since hearing that breakout session is really worthy of some unpacking. You're right. If I know up front, so back to your scenario, if I know up front that all you really need is a transactional specialist. You know exactly what you need. You know exactly how much you're willing to pay for it. I mean, it's a pair of jeans that you're going to buy, and you love
Mhm.
them, you know what they are, you know your size, everything. It's good. I just need a transactional resource, and I don't like shopping on Amazon. So who do you have that's going to be able to help me? That's way different than, no, what I need is help. What I need is advice. What I need are options, different things that might imply the reason you would advocate, the reason you would sponsor that particular referral, because I'm now letting you know, yeah, this person is really good at asking questions. They're going to want to dig into some things you might not be thinking about. If that's going to irritate you, this might not be the person you want to work with, because they see what you're doing in a much bigger picture than just, oh, you need a loan. You already know you're going to take a 30-year fixed, and you already know you qualify for FHA. Like, if it's just a transaction, not a whole lot of reason to sponsor, other than I just really like you a lot and I hope they're going to choose you. But if I can find out that what they need is something that involves a little more than the transaction, oh my gosh, now I can really lean into that sponsorship. I like that a lot.
I think the other difference between mentorship and sponsorship is you're kind of putting, there's a little more risk. So you're putting yourself on the line a little bit to say, hey, here's why I'm advocating for this person. And so you're a little bit more on the hook. So it provides a little bit more trust up front because you are willing to put yourself behind that person. So, and I have another example that I think is a little bit applicable in our industry as well, is let's say you have a newer member of your team and you have a senior member of your team and you say, hey, that's a great project for the new person. And they say, oh, I don't know. They're really smart. They're really good. So a lot of times we're advocating for people on our team as well. And I think that's an important thing to remember. It doesn't need to be that you're talking to your boss about someone on your team that needs a promotion. It could be something small that you do internally to say, hey, trust this person with this project because it'll help them grow. That's advocating, that's sponsoring that person. And I think that's really any manager, any team leader's job is to do that again and again in our day.
Okay, I like where we pivoted, and now let's dig into that a little bit. So, if you're willing to step into that danger and advocate for someone, you're going to sponsor them, whether it's an internal
Mhm.
example, like you just gave a member of the team, or back to where we were previously, the external one, which is, I'm going to refer you to someone that I work with, my lending partner, if you're a real estate professional. Either of those involves, to your point, a level of trust, because I'm now placing my personal reputation with that advocacy. If that doesn't play out in a way that that person succeeds with whatever the scenario was, it's possible that comes back to me. And I'm never really
Mhm.
100% sure. This happened to me recently with a client where I was able to refer him to um, a, a specialist. And I made it really clear, I am super confident that if you need this area of expertise that this person has, I'm very confident you're going to be happy, because this is what he does. And there's no question in my mind that if you're in that lane, he's going to nail it. If you're asking him to work outside of that, that's where he is no longer unique in that area of expertise. And therefore, he might be like a lot of other people. And there might be someone else that's the expert in that other area that you need. And so you need to really weigh that out. And I did that because I knew my personal reputation was attached to that. And I did not want to make the old blanket statement of, oh, call Catherine. She's great. She'll handle anything. Well, the truth is, you might try to handle anything, but you're probably the world's best at a few things. So let's stay focused on what you're great at, because my reputation gets attached when I'm the sponsor. That's really important, because that means we're going to need to build some trust, which I think is going to go back down to relationship. But if I don't feel that you're going to handle that in a way that reflects both of our best version of ourselves, I, I might hold back. I might not be as strong with that introduction or that advocacy, whether it's internal or external. That's really good. I hope folks are picking up on the nuances that you're giving us there, Catherine. Any other thoughts on this one? Because I'm sure there are different camera angles. When you go back to sponsoring one more time, are there any other examples of an angle we maybe haven't thought of? I mean, you've thought of a couple of great creative ones.
So I think what I want our listeners to also think about is what are you doing to create advocates for yourself? So, do people work with you and say, oh my gosh, that's a person I want to advocate for. I want them to succeed. I want to help them. I want to put my reputation at risk to help them. So, a good question is, am I being the person in my everyday life, in my work life, who people will advocate for because they believe in me based on my actions, based on my character, based on my work ethic? So, I think that's a good question for our listeners to ask themselves.
Okay, so that involves their reputation and it involves some emotional intelligence. They need to be able to see themselves as others see them, and that's easier for some folks, harder for others. Some folks just
Yeah.
don't know how to read the room, and they don't know how they are perceived by others when different scenarios might exist. So, what's your advice for someone? Now, you get to be the advisor on this one. What's your advice for someone who might like what you just told them, but they're not sure how to create that level of advocacy for themselves because they're not really sure. Well, aren't I already doing that, or am I not? They need some help. Where do they get started in order to very practically be qualified for someone to sponsor them?
So I think one of the things that's so powerful to do is just to ask. So go to a person who you respect and say, hey, what are some things that you tell other people about me? What are some things that I can do to improve? What are some weaknesses you see? So it's like that 360 analysis we've kind of touched on in a few episodes. But
Yeah.
why are people using you to do their transaction? Why are they referring you? It's all questions you can ask because sometimes you hear things about, oh, yeah, you're brilliant at this. Oh, you might need to work on these parts, or, you're on my list. I'll always give out your name, but I have these other people. Okay, tell me why. What do they do? So you can dig into it, but you have to be vulnerable to get that information, which is hard.
Well, some of them just give me big bags of cash. Isn't that a good enough reason? Uh,
No,
okay. Sorry,
no.
Ken Perry. Just wanted to see if you were listening. Hey, I like all of these examples except for my joke. And I really do think that if you're willing to step into that danger and ask, you'll find out a lot of things. You'll find out your
Mhm,
unique value proposition because pretty quickly they'll start to describe why they do choose you in a lineup of folks that might look the same. And
mhm,
that allows them and invites them to consider sponsoring you because that's really it. I mean, I guess you could argue you could identify someone's unique value proposition, but if that was the only end game, it's, oh, okay, great. There it is. You're asking them to take one more step. Now that you recognize that, will you sponsor me? Will you advocate for me in a room that I don't exist? Whether that's internally with a team in the example you gave earlier or externally with a referral. Great examples, by the way. And I think if the audience is listening, let's circle it back and maybe land here. The responsibility really starts and ends with you. You have told, back to our CIA exercise episode as well. That was the control, influence, accept. And I said, we're going to stay focused on the things that we know we control. We're going to uh, really lean into the things that we might influence, and we're going to let go of the things we must accept. Well, you're talking about the control category here. You do get to control the questions you
mhm,
ask. You do get to control the way that you do exist in the scenarios that they're giving you feedback on, maybe the things they love and are easy to advocate for, maybe some of the things they don't understand and make it a little harder for them to advocate on. And maybe there's even something that they're like, this doesn't work for me. Like, you show up in a t-shirt with a backwards hat on. You're allowed to wear whatever you want, but that doesn't allow me to advocate for you when my audience is professional. They just don't know how to interpret that. It doesn't mean that you're not brilliant. I just can't advocate for you the same as if you maybe showed up with, I don't know, your hair combed and, and a collared shirt on. Um, those are examples, but I think they help because if they get that conversation started in someone's mind, they can start recognizing, oh my gosh, I own the beginning and the end of that process. And it's up to me. I can't expect people to advocate for me if I'm invisible. I really need to step into that danger. Really great on that. Catherine, any closing thoughts on this? Because I really love that you brought this one to our attention.
The only other question I would add to your list is who can you advocate for? Who can you sponsor? in your life to help bring up other people, I think that's a really good thing to think through. And all right, well, with that, I'll get things closed out on this episode of Building Bigger Lives. You can find us on all the platforms. Please like, please share, please comment. Let us know who you are sponsoring in your life. We'd love to hear more. Thanks for joining us.